Hey guys, and welcome back to the Basswood carving channel. Today we got a fun little project for you here. So my family and I, we decided we were going to start a lure making business and lure carving, lure painting, and things like that. So basically, it got me a airbrush for my birthday back in March, and I started playing around with painting baits. I needed some baits to start with, so I thought, well, I'll just carve my own baits, and that way, if I mess them up, I can just throw them away or sand them down, repaint them, and then we can make my own baits. And so it really got interesting, and it got fun, and I realized that how many different ways I could make a bait. So I thought I would share that with you, and we're gonna put I put a video up, and I had a lure in the video, and my friend Jeff at Jeffro Carves, he found the lure, and I said if anybody puts it in the comments, then I will send you that lure. So Jeff, unfortunately, the lure that I had in the video, I was trying to get some video of, and actually, I got that thing hung up and lost it. So I'm going to have to paint you one and make you one today. And that's what we're going to do. So if you haven't subscribed or checked out Jeffro Carves, go check him out. He's a new video guy like me, and doing wood carving videos. He does a lot of cool flat plane carving little characters. And if you haven't checked out his channel yet, go over there and check it out. I'll put a link in the description to his channel. So yeah, Jeff, just a little shout out for his channel. Help him get to 1,000 subscribers. He's so close. He needs some more subscribers to get there. So you guys on my channel, go help him out and subscribe. And I think you'll like some of the stuff he's doing. But Jeff, we're going to carve this one for you today, and we're going to paint it in the in a crappie pattern. So I've been basically playing around with these baits, and these are some of the ones that I did, and I've learned a lot about bait making. I'm carving mine out of basswood. Sometimes they're carved out of balsa, but I thought, hey, this is basswood carving, so let's carve them out of basswood and let's make them work. Basswood is a buoyant wood like balsa wood, and I think it's going to hold up a little better. So I'm anxious to really, I've already tried these lures in the water, so I know they work and I know they sink. The biggest thing to find out about making lures is getting that balance in the weight right of how you want your bait to swim and how you want it to react in the water. These are lipless, which means they don't have any bill coming off the front of them. So basically, if you want to learn how to do some baits, I'm going to put up a bunch of baits, and I'll make a playlist for it called Fishing Lures. And that way, if you want to just check those out, you can. And if you don't, there'll still be carving videos on here for you. Just a little trigger warning for the traditional carvers. There will be sandpaper used in this video, so don't freak out. We got to get these finishes down smooth so we can make them look good. So let's get started. I basically cut out some blanks, and I'll show you. I made these templates on my Cricut. We have a Cricut, and I learned that you could cut basswood, actually. So went to Hobby Lobby, bought some thin basswood, bought some balsa wood, and I learned how to cut out my own templates on basically on the Cricut and these little strips of basswood. So they make great little templates because I wanted to make a bunch of different baits and different sizes and different shapes. There, I got a little crawl that I'm working on. I got a 4-inch swim bait, and this one's going to be jointed. So check out I might do a video on how to make up some templates on Cricut. If you like that idea, put it down in the comments, and maybe if I get enough comments on it, I'll show you how to make some templates for your wood carving out of basswood. So let's get started on this. The first thing that I needed to do was I had to cut my shape down, obviously. If you don't have a table saw or a bandsaw, you can always template this out on a piece of block of wood and just carve down to the lines. Like I always tell you, I leave the lines on there so you can see them. Different thicknesses. This one was, I believe it was 2. Let's get some measurements for this particular one in case you want to do this one. The size that I used on this was 1 3/4 by 3 3 3/4. And then I cut that, like I said, I cut that down on the bandsaw just to speed up the process a little bit. So we're gonna, first thing we want to do is we want to put the eye in. We got to put some holes in, so when we carve this down, we get everything in the right spot. Positioning the eyes are probably the hardest thing to get looking even. So, you know, with your little template, if you make a little template, now you can do this, make a template out of cardboard, you know, or paper, whatever. But I suggest put the eye hole in there where you want it. And then this is one of the things that I learned when I started carving into it. I carved down too far and the eye hole wasn't in the right spot. So make sure that you put your eye hole in there first. And I cut this out of the cricket and then drilled the little eye hole in there. So get your template where you want it and draw your eye hole. Flip it over. Draw your other eye hole and line it up. Try to line it up exactly. Put your other eye on the other side. Because nothing looks weird than a eye hole in 2 different spots. Of course, I don't think the fish notice it, but you know, you do. Or if you want to do these to sell to people, you know, you want that eye in the right spot. Okay. So we got that drawn on there, and we're going to go ahead and sink the eye hole in there a little bit. Also, we're going to need some lead in here. As you notice, I didn't paint these because I was playing around with different weights to try to find out what works the best. In this particular bait, I wanted the weight in the front, so it kind of dives down and gives that little tail end motion back and forth, like so. So I put the weight towards the front. And that was probably the hardest part, is figuring out the weights. And I'll share some of that with you. But pretty much, depending on the size that you use, it's all going to be a little different. So it's just something you're going to have to learn how to play around with and figure out, you know, what works best. So let's put some eye holes in here. And let's put the lead hole in the front. And then we'll start carving it down. Okay? We'll be right back. Okay, all right, so for the eye holes, I'm using a Forstner bit. This is a 1/4 inch Forstner bit, and it leaves a little flat spot for the eye, so the eye lays down in there, and then we'll super glue the eye in there. But I went ahead and marked where my eye hole is with my template. So now I'm going to take the Forstner bit, kind of line it up in the center there, and I'm going to go down probably about 1/8 of an inch. You won't go a little, it's okay if you go a little deep, because you're going to end up carving some of that down anyway. So go down till it looks decent. Like I said, this is all experimental stuff that you'll play around with to get right. And if you're using scraps of wood, no big deal. You can throw it away if you mess it up. Start over again. But you really want to put the eye holes in first. That way, you know where your eye is, and you can carve down into it. And that way your eye can sit down in there and it still bulges out a little bit. Okay, so got the eye holes in there. We need a hole for the weight. So what we're going to do is, first we're going to find the center, and we just do the old wood carver trick. Is use your pencil with your finger up against the edge, and this will also help you when you go to put your hook hangers and everything in. And I'm going to show you how I make my hook hangers and line ties. Okay, so just going to get that centered. Just eyeball it, because we're going to carve it down. No big deal. All right, so we want our weight to be in the center, and I want my weight to be almost up here towards the front, because like I said, I want my bait nose to sink down a little bit, so when I pull it through the water, it makes that motion. Okay, all right, so we're going to switch bits, and we're going to go with a small bit first, just so we don't bust it out or split it out. And put a little pilot hole in there. And we'll just gradually go up. Now, I think I'm pretty much, I put, my bait ended up weighing, like I want to say it was like 0.12 ounce, and I ended up bringing it up to like 16. So I played around 0.16 ounce. So I played around with it just to make sure that I could get it to sink what I wanted. And like I said, when you're making baits, that's probably, you know, the biggest thing is playing around with your weights and getting your weights right. If you try to buy a lead pot right now, you're not going to be able to. There's none to be found. I couldn't find a lead pot nowhere. So I started using sinkers, and I would just drill out my hole big enough for the sinker, and then I would drop the sinker down in there, and then if I needed more, it would just make it a little deeper and just put more sinkers in. But luckily my neighbor, I was telling him about our baits and showing him, and he said, I got a lead pot you can use. And I was like, oh, that would be awesome. So he gave me a lead pot to use, and we're not going to put the lead in it yet. I'm going to show you all that in the finishing part of the video. Now I can do a couple things here. I can put a bigger, fatter hole and put a big piece of lead, or I can put more holes and put more lead in. And like I said, it just depends, and that's probably the biggest challenge of all of it, is trying to get that weight right. The other thing is you want to know where your hook hangers are going to be, so you don't actually put a lead hole right where your hook hanger is going to be. So we're going to have a hook hanger about right there in the center, and then we're going to have one back here on the back. So that's would be where our hook hangers are, and then we'll have a centerpiece right here, a line tie right here. So know where you're going to put those, that way you don't drill a big old lead hole. And we're going to actually just do one lead hole on this one. So I'm going to drill out a bigger hole. And drill out a bigger hole. And we'll finish all this up. It'll look nice. You won't even see the lead by the time we get done. Okay, so we got a big old lead hole right here. We almost got where our tip was, but that's okay. We can still save that. All right, so we're going to put our lead there, our eyes there, hook hangers here, and I think we're ready to shape this thing up a little bit. So let me get this stuff out of the way, get it cleaned up, and we'll come back and do our carving. Okay, one thing you might want to invest in if you want to get into making lures and stuff is definitely a good little scale. This little scale, I don't know, I think I paid like 10, 12 or 15 bucks for it. I'm not even sure. I've had it for quite a while. And what's it going to tell me? Okay, so the good thing is that you always want to be checking your baits and seeing what they weigh. And like I said, okay, so with this one we got 19 grams. So we're going to see what it is when we carve it down. And then we'll probably add about maybe 4 or 5 grams of weight just to get it to sink down a little bit. But yeah, invest yourself in a little scale, a little digital scale that you can use to play around with your weights and stuff. And if you got a little fishing aquarium, or I use my stationary tub, just put some water in it and drop it down in there and see if it sinks how you like it. If not, you can add a little more weight. And then once you get the weight that you like, you can seal it in, and I'll show you how we're going to seal all that stuff in. Okay, so let's shape this down. This one here is a little thinner, as you can see. I think I used like a 1/2 inch piece of wood on that. Again, I just use my scraps. I can make a bunch of baits out of scraps, scrap wood. This one's a little fatter, more like a crankbait, a little fatter crankbait. So we're going to kind of stay with this little theme here and keep it kind of fat and thin it down towards the back. So first we want to take a little chamfer around it, and basically I'm just going to find out what I want and start little, start close, get your shape, and you can always go back and take more off. But pencil you a line around there so it kind of looks even. Basically we're just going to round this down a little bit. So same thing on the other side, a little chamfer. And the other thing that you'll want to make sure is that your lure is pretty much the same on both sides. As far as carving goes, you want it to be balanced to keep that action. So, you know, while you're carving it, just keep eyeballing it, make sure it kind of looks the same. These ones here are not too bad. But once you get into making swim baits and things like that, it really becomes important that you keep them the same. But we're all carvers here. We know that we can carve something the same on both sides, right? Okay, so basically I'm just going to take my knife and start rounding this down a little bit. And the sandpaper is going to help. Once I start sanding on it, I can get it down a little more even. But just go around and take all these hard edges off. Come down to your line. It's really pretty easy. Simple little carving project. Like I said before, once you get into it, there's so much you can do. So much you'll want to do if you're into this kind of stuff. And they're pretty forgiving. I mean, when it comes to making them work. Well, let's get these edges down a little bit. Again, I know most of the time they make them out of balsa wood, but since I had a lot of basswood around, I thought let's make them out of basswood and see how that works. And basically, the buoyancy is just about as good as balsa wood, and I think they hold up a little better when you're banging them around on the rocks and everything. So basically, I'm just going to take off this edge and get me a little shape going. I think that's the fun part about it, is I can kind of create whatever I want, whatever shape I want. If I want to do a crawfish, or if I want to do a swim bait. But you can really put some time into them and kind of make them unique. So we're just going to come down to our lines a little bit. There's not really a lot of carving involved until we start putting in gills and stuff like that. Basically, we're just going to carve that dude down. Get these hard edges off. If you want to see a lot more about the painting of different types of lures, I did start a new channel, and it's called Crusty Cranks, because that's our company name now, Crusty Cranks. And you can go to Crusty Cranks TV on YouTube now. I'm going to start putting up painting videos of all my different paint styles that I've been doing on lures. So if this is really something you want to get into, you know, go ahead and check out that channel and subscribe to it. I'd appreciate it. And I'm going to do a lot more painting lures on that channel. And I've already got the first video up of the first style. It's not a carved lure, it's a plastic blank bait that you can buy. And start putting those on there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start thinning this back down just a little bit, just so I get a little fatter head at the front. This is going to help the action of the bait. It's going to make that tail move back and forth a little bit more. Just go ahead and then we'll probably take off all the sawn edges and the factory edges here. Get it a little bit somewhat smooth. This is just a flat-sided, kind of a flat-sided crankbait. So we want the back to be a little thinner towards the tail. There's some other lure painters and lure makers on YouTube, which is kind of how I got into it. Was I got this airbrush and I was going to use the airbrush to paint my carvings. So I started watching some other airbrushing videos and seen the lure painting, and I thought, man, that's kind of cool. I'd really like to learn how to do that. So I started playing around with it a little bit and started making lures, painting lures. And people started wanting to buy them. And our family was like, well, we kind of love to fish, and it'd be really fun if we can make our own lures that actually catch fish. So we'll, not in this video, but we will take some lures out and do some fishing with them. And most of that will be on the Crusty Cranks TV YouTube channel. So like I said, if you get a chance and you want to learn more about painting lures, go check out my new channel. We're going to do a lot of painting over there. I'll paint this one. We'll see how long the video goes. But we can paint this one or make a separate video on painting it. We'll see how it goes. So we're kind of, as you can see, we're kind of thinning it down so it's a little thinner towards the back, a little fatter towards the front. And we'll clean all this up with some dreaded sandpaper. Or if you don't want, if you just want that flat plain look with the chips in it, you can do that too. You don't have to sand it, but I probably won't take you through the whole sanding because it does take a minute to get all the sanding done. But I'll show you a little bit of sanding progress as we move along. I think everybody will probably want to see putting the hardware on and getting the paint done. So that's why I started off with kind of a simple one that we could get going and make it kind of a quick lure. Kind of want to get a little bit of rounding towards the top. That just helps that water flow past the lure when you're pulling it through the water. It helps with that action. You can get some really little lures, big lures. You can take it on a belt sander and get all shaped up if you want, but since I like carving wood, I thought, why do I gotta do all that? This is more fun just carving it and shaping it myself and dealing with things like chipping off. We got some bad storms today, so hopefully my power will stay on. It's just been raining like crazy around here. Garden's looking good though. You've seen my video I put up about my deer that's eating the beans. I think I found the solution, but he's been getting in there once in a while. I've caught him on camera getting back in there, so still working on that problem, but he's not eating the beans, so should have plenty of beans. He's mostly eating the leaves off, which is just causing the bush beans to get thicker, so it's just frustrating. Put all that time and work in it and see the deer get in there and destroy it. Okay, so we're kind of got this roughed in right now. We're gonna clean it up a little bit. I got the chipping right there, but I'm going to show you how to fill all that in. Mostly just get your shape you're after, no matter what kind of shape it is that you want to create. Get your shape, get your tapers, chamfers, whatever you want to call them. Get those all cleaned up, shaped just like you like it. This one's got kind of a high back, but I think we're close. I think we're close to moving on. Again, this is kind of a flat-sided crankbait, so we're not doing a lot of carving on the side. We just want to kind of taper that down in to the tail and just take these edges off. Get this cleaned up a little bit so you don't have to do as much sanding. Okay. A little fatter part in the front will make it, give it that action. It'll deflect that water as you're pulling it through and help give it that little wobble. Taper down to the eye a little bit so the eye kind of stands out. Okay, so there we go. Let's get some sandpaper out and get this dude cleaned up. I'll be ready for some next stages. I think we're going to put a little bit of a gill pattern in it. On this one, you can see I put a little gill pattern on there. All right. Let's take a little bit more off here. Okay, looks rough now, but it's gonna look good. Let's get a little bit more of this flat off. Okay, I like it. All right, bring you back once I got some sandpaper and we'll get it smoothed out. Okay, I'm using a piece of 120 just to speed it up a little bit. Try not to shake the cameras too much, but let's go ahead and just get all this rough spots off. Start shaking her down a little bit, smoothing her out. We'll use the 120, get the most of it off. And then we'll take and get some fine 220. Okay, went on and sanded a little bit off camera because nobody wants to watch me sand for 30 minutes. But we pretty much got her smooth. I got a little spot right there I got to work on. But I want to take you through what we want to do next. Again, I was using the 220 on this. So what I'm going to do, or 120, I'm sorry. So what I'm going to do now is switch to 220 just to smooth, get that really nice and smooth. And I'm going to show you what kind of finish we're going to put on this just to seal it. We want to seal her, and that way when we do our painting, and then because we're going to put it in water, but we're going to cover it in epoxy, so I'm not too worried about it not being able to, not sinking filling full of water, but we'll get it really nice and smooth, because once we put a little bit of a finish on it, it's gonna get a little rough again. But it's not that big of a deal. You don't have to worry about it too much. Just use your 220 or a finer grade, whatever. Depends on how much you want to really sand it down. But basswood's pretty good sanding wood, so it sands really smooth. Just take your finer grade sandpaper, clean it up a little bit, but we got all the bumps and everything out of it, and it's looking pretty good. We got the right profile that we want. So we'll be putting the lead in next. We'll be cleaning it up just a little bit more, and we're going to seal it, and I'll bring you back on that, and we'll finish this dude up. Okay, let's get a little gill structure on here, just a little. We'll do a simple little gill pattern. Just hand drawing this on both sides. So here's what we'll do. We'll take the knife. We want the gill to look a little layered. So first we're going to take our knife and we're going to make a stop cut all the way down. And your gills can get really detailed. Just depends on how much you want to put into it. You know, but for this one we'll do a simple little gill pattern here. Okay, we'll make our stop cut, and then we're going to come back up and make a little V cut. We don't need a lot, we just want to see that kind of raised up a little bit, just to separate the head from the body. This is extremely tough with the camera in front of me, so bear with me. I tried a new position on the camera. Got a different little tripod here that seems to work a little better. It's gonna put you more in front of the view. I think it's gonna be a little better. Okay, so just a little stop cut right there, and we'll go back and clean that up when we. Same thing over here. A little stop cut. Kind of trying to get used to working with the camera right in front of me. A little more of a challenge. Like I said in earlier videos, I like to have a piece up close to me. Okay. I just want that to raise up a little bit. Okay. So on the other side here, behind the gill, we're just going to do the same thing, and just follow your lines. I'm almost going to bring that to the bottom of this one. Actually, we are going to bring it to the bottom. And just come in here. Take that out a little bit. Let's just get that little pencil mark off of there. Take that little hard edge off right there. Okay, same thing on the other side. Come to the bottom of it. Almost to the top. Getting that storm I was talking about. So I'm hoping my lights power will stay on. Enough to get through this little carve here. Just take that little sliver out of there. Come back in. Take that little edge off. Now you could do this with a V tool. come back in and clean it up with a little sandpaper. We'll do that off camera. Okay, just create a little simple little gill right there, and clean that up and move on to adding the lead in there. Okay, bring you back in a second. Okay, I went back and I used this little V tool, which is what I usually do anyway, and just take that in there and just clean that gill out, and you can get a really nice looking gill pattern with it without having to do a lot of sanding. Once I got a little better in the light, I could see that it was a little rough looking, so it was real easy to just take this little V tool. Actually, this one's a round gouge, little tiny micro round gouge. You guys have seen me use them before, especially on detailing. And then just cut your gill in there. And probably do that a little easier with the V tool than the knife. But anyway, I think we're all done. Let's put some lead in it. See how she floats. Put a little seal on it, and see if we get the right sinking that we want. And we'll be ready to paint it and put the hook sets on it. Okay, for sealing, we're going to use this super thin, Starbond super fast thin, high performance premium super glue. Basically, is what it is. So what we're going to do is we're going to coat this baby down real good. I like the super thin because you can spread it pretty easy without having to put your fingers in it too much. Okay, and you're going to coat this whole thing with this stuff, and it's going to absorb in there, and it's going to create a little bit of a bond. And at some point it is going to get on your fingers, so if you want to use a paper towel, or actually let me get a paper towel real quick. Sorry about that. That way, if you don't want to get it on your fingers, you can use the paper towel and just brush it, rub it on there. But it gets a little tacky, so do it in stages. You know, if you want, do it in stages. Spread it on, let it dry. Use your paper towel if you want. A lot of times I use my finger. Just, if you don't want to go with the super glue on your fingers all day long for a couple days until it all wears off. But coat this baby down real good, and it's going to help seal it from the water. Just get it rub it in there real good. Watch what you stick to and what sticks to it. It'll definitely stick to your fingers if you get it on your fingers and the wood at the same time. But this creates a really good tight bond, and it also helps when the grain starts coming back out. We'll rough over it a little bit with a light sandpaper just to take the roughness out of it. But it's going to get down in there and create a nice seal, so make it waterproof. If you use the regular super glue, it's really going to be tacky and rough. Look, there it goes, sticking to my finger already. Because it's super glue, right? And just be careful it don't stick to whatever you're putting it on. Push it around. Usually only takes a few minutes. And it'll be dry as a rock. Probably the worst part about it is putting this on. I try to get it down in my hole down in here too, where I'm going to put my weight. Oops, sorry, hope I'm staying in the camera for you. But that's what you're going to do. You're just going to coat that thing real good with that super glue. And you'll get it all over the place. Okay, we're going to give that a few minutes to dry. And we're going to put our weights on. We'll take a little bit of it off with the sandpaper. But it'll get down in there, create a nice little bond. Alright, we're going to let that dry and we'll bring you back. We let that dry. Then we took the 220 and just went over it lightly, very lightly. You can see that the super glue is still in there. We didn't sand any of the super glue off. We just went over it lightly just to get the roughness out of it, and then rinsed it off real good. And you can tell, at least by the shine, that it's the super glue's down in the grain and down in the wood, kind of created a seal. So when you put it under the water just to rinse it off, you can see that it kind of bubbles off of there. And like I said, we're going to put paint and we're going to put epoxy, 2-coat epoxy, 2 coats of epoxy on top of it. So it's going to be sealed, and we're going to super glue our hangers in and all that stuff. So it'll be waterproof and it'll last a long time once we get all the finish in it. So let's go put our weight in it and seal that up. Okay, so we're going to add a little lead. Let's see what we got right now. 17 grams is what we weighed. And I remember on this one, this particular lure here, it says 15, but I had to add like 4 grams of weight to it. So I'm going to start off and I'm just going to fill up this hole that we have here. And I got the lead pot nice and hot. You turn the camera a little bit so you can see. I'm in my finishing room here. Let's turn this up. Now it's going to smoke a little bit because the hot lead's obviously going to burn. This is my first time using this. Like I said, my neighbor loaned me this. And normally I would just take sinkers and stick them in there and fill it. But let's see how this lead pot works for the first time. Pretty good. Just let that cool. Obviously, when messing with lead, you don't want to breathe any of these fumes, even if it's just burning the wood. So be careful when you're working with hot lead. Well, we're going to cool this down and see how much it added to the weight. If need be, we can always drill another hole and fill it into if we need more weight. So let's see what this brings us to. Like I said, be careful with the hot lead. It will burn you, and it will burn you bad. And it's now splattering out, so. Okay. Seems to be cool. see what we're at. 31. Oop, let me turn the camera back. So we're at 31 grams. 31 grams, and we were at 17. So we've had quite a bit of weight. So that's let's see, 15 would be 30. We've added almost 16 grams of weight. Maybe way overkill, but we'll find out. Like I said, this is the first time messing with this lead pot, so it's going to take a little experimentation for me to get this down, but that's how you get your lead in there. Now, like I said, if you don't have a lead pot or you can't get one, you can just weigh out your sinkers, see what they weigh, and then put them in based on how much weight you want to put in. This is probably going to sink pretty good. So let me cut the camera, get the sink filled up, and I'll show you guys what we did. Okay, so here's the first lure I made, where I wanted this lure to stay on the top of the water, so it's balanced perfectly. Stays up, and then as you pull it, it's going to sink a little bit, and it's going to get that motion to it. Alright, here's what we got. Watch. When I drop it, the weight pulls the tail up in the air. So what that tells me is I have to put more weight in the back. I want this to balance out and possibly have a slow little drop to it. So it drops slow down in the water like that. So what we need to do is we need to drill some holes back here and gradually start building up weight to pull this thing level in the water. If we can get enough, we can get just a little sink on it. So let's go back to the lead pot, drill some holes, and put more lead in it. Put 2 more holes. Put 2 more holes, and we add a little more lead towards the tail. So what's going to happen is it's going to drop, and that tail is going to come down, but it's still going to stay higher. Now, obviously, when we're fishing, we might let that drop to the bottom, but as we pull it, the tail is going to come, the head's going to come up a little more even with the tail. You'll see what I'll do is do a little action video, but there you go. If you can see the tail staying down, but not perfectly level, which is fine. That's what I'm looking for in this bait. All right, so let's clean it up. I'll show you how to seal the lead in there, and we'll give this thing a paint job. Okay, so we got our weight. I went back in with the little Dremel and cleaned it up a little bit. Got it rubbed down a little bit. Probably could have used a little less weight on the front end, but you know, that's partially my inexperience with the lead pot, because like I said, I usually will put sinkers in there and get my balance based on my sinkers. So you might want to try that if this is your first time making baits. But we're going to seal these leads in there, and basically we're going to use some super glue. And I mean, the lead's hot down in there, so it's not really going anywhere, especially by the time we put the epoxy on top of it. So what we're going to do is we're going to put a little bit of super glue down in there, let that soak in, and then we just take a little baking soda. I'm going to fill that with baking soda. And then we'll come back and sand that down just a little bit. Just take that roughness off, smooth it all back out. And you won't even be able to tell that there's a lead in there. Give it a good dusting. Soak it down. Same way down here. Put a little bit on. But once we paint it, you're not even going to be able to see that. And that super glue will create a bond with the baking soda. And it'll also give the paint something to stick to. It looks a little sloppy, but we clean it up. And like I said, once we get some paint on it, you'll never know it. You'll never know it's there. Once we get the epoxy on it, it's not going to come out of there. Alright, so next what we got to do is make our hook hangers while we let that dry. Okay, so we got these, got 3 pieces right here. It's 6 inches long. I think this is like .018 gauge stainless steel. Make sure you use stainless steel because you don't want them to rust. And basically I'm just going to make a little loop like this, and I'm going to get it started a little bit before I put it in my drill. And let me get that needle nose here. I'm going to get it started a little bit before I put it in my drill, because it always makes it a little easier. And I'll just twist the ends together a little bit like that, and we'll put it inside my drill, tighten it down, make sure you get it in your in between your teeth. You don't want it in between. You want all 3 teeth clamping down on it, so you can get it nice and tight. Okay, then you're going to loop it around this. I got a little finishing nail here, and I'm going to go slow, wind it slow, and there you go. Loosen it up a little bit. There's one of them. Let's do another one. Fold it together. Start it. A little twist to get it started. Get it in your teeth. Two. We need 3. I'm gonna have 2 hook hangers and a line tie. Okay, sorry it's a little awkward trying to keep it in front of the camera. And a little twist. Make them longer than you think, because you can always clip them off. And go slow. You see it twist all the way up. And there we go. Got 3 line ties. Take a little finishing nail out. Take my needle nose, straighten them up a little bit. And we're ready to put them in. Glue them in. Super glue. Okay, let's get our line tie on there and our 2 hook hangers, and I'll show you what I do. Now I drilled in, I got this little bit, and actually I drill this in as deep as it'll go, all the way down to the chuck. And then what I do is I go back and cut my line ties off just a little shorter than the drill bit, so that way I know I can go all the way in without hitting the inside of the wood. Okay, so I'm going to use a different kind of super glue. I'm going to use the Gorilla Glue super glue. Okay, it's a little heavier bond and a little better, I think, for securing these in. With the super glue, they're not going to come out. So all my ties are the same, so it doesn't matter. So I'm going to put a couple drops down in there, and then I'm just going to wind and stick that baby down in there. And I want to turn it so it's straight up and down like so. Just like that. And I get it straight as I can. And if you ever have to tune a lure, that's the way you do it, by bending your line tie in. Okay, so let's go down here to the bottom ones. So we got one on the bottom. Now sometimes, if my hole's a little too big, I will put some more super glue on the tie, but this little bit is really nice. It fits right down in there pretty good. Okay, and once it's dried in there, it's not going to come out. All right, and then the last one right here for the end hook, and we'll push that dude down in there. Get straight as I can. Okay, and we'll let that sit. Alright, so there's my finished lure. So with the time it took me to get this lure done, that's going to put our video to about an hour. That's pretty good, actually, make a lure in an hour. I think I'm going to do the painting video on a separate video. So you guys stay tuned and look for the painting video. So I'll go ahead and paint it on a separate video. Normally I like to put everything in one video, but I think with this one I can spend a little more time showing you how I use the airbrush and paint these lures. So we'll do the video for the painting on a separate video. Okay, also just to let you guys know, we now have a community. Since I actually got 1,000 subscribers now, YouTube opened up a community for me. So if you wouldn't mind, check out the community. I'm going to put up some polls about the content, about the videos I've been making, and I'd like to have your input so I can give you guys better content and keep stuff coming that you guys like. So if you don't mind, check out the community, and there'll be some polls put up in there, and let me know what your thoughts are. That'll help me improve the videos so that you guys get what you're looking for in these carving videos. Okay, also, if you want to see more painting videos on painting fishing lures, you can check out my new channel. There'll be a link in the description, and it's called Crusty Cranks TV. So we're going to do more lure painting, just painting lures on there. So appreciate you guys watching, and hope you make some lures. Send me some pics, see what you got, and stay tuned for the painting video. Okay, thank you.